Hi, everyone. Welcome to the University College Dublin student panel. My name is Sarah Blank. I'm one of the UCD North America representatives. I work on behalf of the Western region of North America. With me today, I have three lovely current students who are actually scattered all over the world at the moment, both in Ireland and both back in the United States due to COVID-19. But we are really excited to kind of share with you a little bit more of the student perspective, answer some of the questions that people have sent in on our Facebook page. And as always, your North America representatives are happy to answer any questions and follow-up questions after this. So first and foremost, I'd love for each of our panelists to share their name and what year they are and where they're from. So Sarah, fellow Sarah, if you want to kick us off as well.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah. I'm from Portland, Maine originally. Now in Dublin. I'm in my second year on the Liberal Arts and Sciences program, and I'm going on to the Bachelor's of Commerce track.
Ray?
Hi, I'm Ray. I'm currently in Dublin, but I'm originally from upstate New York. I'm in my second year, and I'm doing politics geography with a specialization in archaeology.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm from San Francisco, California, and that is where I'm currently located. I did economics and politics, and I am a final year at UCD.
So all of you have a wealth of experience. You're all involved in different clubs and societies on campus. So first, I'd love to kind of talk about the academics. One of the questions we get a lot is, how did you make that transition from going to school in North America, specifically in the United States, and then transitioning over to UCD? Sydney, you're in your final year. How was that transition for you? What types of things did you experience as you started at UCD?
So when I started at UCD, I only had about 12 hours a week in classes, which wasn't too bad at all. But the biggest difference with the United States and Ireland was the way the exams were set up. So I was previously used to continuous assessment, and then when I got to Ireland, a lot of my grade was the final exam. However, it turned out to be completely okay, and it always ended up working out in the end, so that was great. But that was a bit nerve-wracking going over. But it also taught me to really know the information and what I was talking about, and that was crucial to my success. So it ended up totally working out, but that was a huge difference from what I was used to before.
Got it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of continuous assessment in the United States, so kind of moving from that. Ray or Sarah, how was your experience transitioning over to UCD? Was it easy to meet people in class and to engage with your professors, or what was kind of your experience with that coming over?
Yeah, so I came over and I was kind of just expecting like a very American college experience, like Sid said, like continuous assessment. And I came over and that's not what it was at all. You have maybe two or three big assignments throughout the year, and then you have finals worth 50 to 80% of your grade. There is a lot of like leeway and like helping along your first year to kind of get used to it. It's not just the international students, it's the Irish students as well. It's a lot of, you need to learn your own time management, things like that. But in the long run, like Sid said, you get a lot more out of it. You teach yourself, okay, now I have to study, like I have to write this paper, I have to do good. So I feel it gives you a leg up, especially coming from America with this curriculum that I'm doing anyways with social sciences. It's a lot of essay writing, and I felt like I had a one up on the Irish students because American kids know how to write essays. We know how to cite our sources. We know how to put stuff in alphabetical order. So after I got used to just being in college and learning how to time manage, there wasn't really any transition for me at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely the exams, I was like, wow, okay, so I need to study the whole semester, not just wait for that last week of study week. So that was definitely an adjustment, but like Ray and Cindy said, it's something you get used to. And for me personally, I actually really like how it works. I like the exam system. And in terms of like meeting people in my classes, the commerce track in particular has a ton of group work in your first and second year, which has been really, really nice because I meet other people in my course and in a few other courses as well. So yeah, it was definitely like going into it, I was like, what am I getting myself into? But after I kind of realized what was going on, it wasn't much of a transition. I really enjoy how it's set up.
Yeah, and we have a lot of resources on campus, writing centers, math centers, anything like that. Have any of you used or taken advantage of some of those resources on campus?
I went to the math support center. That was very helpful for me in my first semester last year. Very helpful.
Not my strong suit either, so I would have been there as well.
I spend a lot of my time in the writing center, especially now that we're at a higher level. You have to really work on your academic writing, and you just go in with a question or what you're stuck with. They'll sit with you one-on-one and work on your essay, especially now that referencing is getting a little more complicated and European referencing is slightly different. I just go in and they just answer whatever question I have, and it's really lax because we have a lot of languages at UCD, so everyone's kind of like trying to do their best with the most like academic reading and writing. But yeah, definitely great resources to use if you have a problem.
What do you like most about your academic area of study or the professors at UCD? Anything that was kind of surprising to you as well, making the transition? Sydney, I don't know, like I said, you're in your final year, so you've had quite a bit of exposure over the last several years.
I would say probably one of the best things for me was being able to go into my major was actually very, very nice. I would have preferred going into my major rather than taking general education, which is what we're used to in the US. That's just how I personally feel. And that was a really nice transition for me because I always knew what I wanted to do in high school or had an idea of what I liked and versus what I didn't like. So it was nice to be able to go into something and have that 3-year program. And then if I wanted to do a master's, I could add a year versus like, oh, I have to do 4 years. The 2 of those years are general ed and then the 2 years to concentrate on my major. So it was nice to have that 3-year kind of slice of education. And that was something that really worked out for me in the end.
Any favorite classes that you have or favorite professors?
I had this particular class that was international relations, and I've had the same professor for same years for the same 3 years. Who I'm talking about, it's Tobias, and he was great. I really liked him. Just super straightforward, super to the point. What you need to know. Just one of the nicer professors at UCD, and very helpful. So.
I think that's always, I ask that question because I think that's always the concern sometimes of students going to any university, but specifically going abroad is, who are my professors? What are they going to be like? Will I understand their accent even? And we have, professors from all around the world as well. But I think that's always just an added question that we get as well.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about, in terms of academics, what you wish you would have known coming into UCD. We'll talk about student life as well and some of the things you wish you would have known. But any advice you can give academic-wise or any ways that students should prepare coming into UCD for their first year?
Be prepared to have tons of free time that you don't really know what to do with at first, and you really kind of have to work with, okay, I'm going to sit down and study at this time, and then I'm going to do this at this time, because Irish kids just have this gift they learned in secondary school where they can sit for 8 to 10 hours and just study. I cannot do that. I have never been able to do that. So it's a lot of time management wise, like when do I have to go to the library versus when can I go to a tutorial and get help. So it's just a normal college transition. Like, I have this free time. What do I do with it? I don't have a parent telling me what to do anymore, or a 7-hour school day where they shuffle me around. So you really just kind of go with the flow and what works for you, which is a nice part of university.
I think one thing for me was that no one is forcing you to go to most of your classes. Occasionally you'll have a tutorial or a small group where attendance is counted, but like lectures, for the most part, you won't have any attendance. So for me, it was like getting used to, not having anyone telling me I have to do these things, and just getting myself to be like, okay, I have class at this time, then I'm going to go to the library, and then I can see my friends. Like, I can see my friends any other time, but like go to class when I have class. Just because, like Ray said, you do have all that free time, and it's really easy to just be like, you know what, all of my friends are getting lunch, I'm going to go with them and skip this lecture. but then you'll go to the next lecture and you're falling behind. So just kind of working out your schedule and making sure that, you're sticking to what you have to do, even though no one is telling you that you have to do that.
I think that's one of the things that we say all the time to students, or I get asked all the time, what makes a great student at UCD and what makes a successful student? I think you three are all, great perspectives of that anyways. But I think a lot of our students are a little bit more mature. They're a little bit more independent coming into university, that they do kind of understand that level of responsibility and that need to be responsible in making those decisions. And I think especially going to college anyways, but especially when you're transitioning to a new system, as you guys said. Anything else that you kind of love about your academic experience before we kind of transition to talking a little bit more about student life at UCD?
I will say I'm in the liberal arts and sciences program, and for me, I knew I was probably going to do commerce, but I wasn't 100% sure. So for me, that was a really, really helpful program because, like Sydney said, I have friends who were like, I am doing commerce, nothing else. And they went directly in, and that worked so well for them. But for me, being kind of like, I don't know, liberal arts and sciences was a huge, huge help. So I definitely recommend that if you're not sure what you want to do.
And for me, I'm a lot like a fieldwork based like degree program. And the great thing about UCD, it is a research based university. So I have professors that will go a week or two, like I had a professor go to Switzerland and talk about Brexit and the way that's going to affect the border. And then they come back and they talk to us about it. I just had an opportunity to go to the border region with a professor for part of his project and work with him and get field experience. So you're working along with your professors as they're doing their entire academic career, writing these research papers and releasing them. And it's just such a cool experience to see how that works one-on-one and just kind of get more in depth in the field than just having a professor that's only ever taught. So I think that's a real benefit.
Yeah, that hands-on experience. And I know, Sydney, I know you've done an internship over the summer. I'm not sure, actually, Sarah or Ray, if that's something in the works for you at the moment. Not yet. But Sydney, how was that kind of experience transitioning to an internship over the summer? If you could just talk, you don't have to talk about too much of the internship, but just how was that transition? Did you feel that the coursework that you were taking prepared you for that specific internship over the summer and such?
So the internship that I did specifically was an open-based internship, like any major could join. But something that I will say is that going to a school abroad, because it was an airline, really did help me out in the long run when I was interviewing. People found that really interesting because it makes you really stand out to a lot of people, especially in the United States, because everybody has these experiences of going to Cal States or NYU or things like that, and those schools are amazing as well. But it's very different to come back and say like, oh, well, I actually did the entire degree abroad instead of going for 6 months or a year. So that was something that really popped up throughout the internship a whole lot. But the coursework I did specifically was a bit different. But it was just because the internship was like an open-based major.
Yeah, and that happens. I think a lot of students don't always do internships in their academic related field, which is also a really good complementary experience. But no, that's very interesting to hear kind of your experience with how people look at going abroad for your full degree. Those are actually questions that we get all the time as well from future and prospective students and families. Okay, so enough about academics. I think a lot of people are really interested in what is your day-to-day life at UCD? What maybe do you do outside of the classroom? So Sarah, why don't you give us kind of a look at, what does your day-to-day look like, or how are you keeping busy outside of class?
Yeah, so to start, one of the biggest parts of my day is that I'm a residential assistant. So every 4 nights I work 6 hours in the RA office, and that's just, helping with lockouts, maybe shutting down a party every so often. But for the most part, just interacting with students. And that's something that I applied for last year, kind of being like, am I gonna like this? But it's been a great experience. I've met so many people, so that's a big part of my time at UCD. Sometimes I work weekends as well, so that helps fill up some space as well. And then otherwise, I am in class usually from 10 to like 4-ish, but not continuous every single day. And then just seeing friends. I was part of a few societies last year, but just and like clubs, so like athletics and stuff. But due to an injury and just time constraints, I didn't really continue with those. So a lot of my time is spent in the library as well. Definitely trying to keep up with my studies. So yeah, just it kind of changes each week. Some weekends I'll go and stay with one of my Irish friends. Sometimes I'm at UCD and I'm studying and going grocery shopping or working or something like that. So it kind of changes, but it's nice because I have a schedule, but it's very flexible, which is really, really nice.
And Ray, what are some, fun things going on campus, or any types of events or societies that you're part of, that students can kind of look forward to coming into UCD?
Yeah, so I'm gonna plug a few things.
Right.
Sid and I did lacrosse. That's how we actually met. So yay, UCD students. I'm actually currently the public relations officer and international student rep for a horticulture society. So it's through the Rosemont Research Center on campus, and we do different things with plants. We have our own greenhouse where we get to grow whatever we want, and we just kind of get together and socialize. And I think societies are really cool in the fact that when you're in your degree program, it's just they're all whatever your degree you're studying. But now I have kids that are in bio and then science and then commerce. So you get to meet and mingle with a whole bunch of people that you wouldn't really. And it's fun to kind of like explore campus and just have like a different group outside your friends that like, oh, okay, I have a meeting today. I can go to the meeting and I get to hang out with these people. Or, oh, we have a lacrosse match in Galway. So we get to spend the night and go out all together. So it's a great way to like socialize and everything. And there's a society event for everything all day, every day during the week. Like if you cannot be bored on campus, like I don't think it would be possible. There's so much to do.
I know, with so many students as well, like everybody likes something. And we have Freshers Week, which is the week after orientation. So that's, and I know I've heard in the past, a lot of you utilized Freshers Week to sign up for societies and organizations just to get involved. Any advice for students coming in as they kind of navigate Freshers Week?
Definitely get involved. I think it's like for societies, I think it's like €2 to join. Just take out like €16 and just join anything that interests you, even if you don't continue with it. If you go to one meeting and you meet one person, like it's a great experience. And if you decide you don't like it, then you can try something new. And if you decide you love it, then that's great.
You get a whole bunch of free stuff too.
Yeah.
And you get little discount cards that you can use all over the city. So that's also awesome. So even if you ever go to an event, you have that discount card.
And I remember when I was going to school as well, there was always that concern of how am I going to meet people? How am I going to make friends? And then, let alone a lot of our students, coming to a country that maybe they've been to before, maybe they haven't been to before, they may not know anybody. What was and Sydney, I'll kind of start with you. What was your experience living on campus your first year, meeting new people? What was kind of your experience with that?
So it's interesting because it's a different dorm setup than what most people would be used to in the United States, which would be 2-person to a room. When I was living at UC, I lived in Roebuck Halls, and that was kind of like considered the luxury living, if you will, on campus. Yeah, it was super bougie. But yeah, so I had like my own bathroom, my own bedroom, and then I shared a hall with about 5 other people, and I'm still friends with one of the guys to this day. But yeah, so basically you may see your flatmates when you cook dinner together, or you may hang out within that separate living room. But it is nice to have your own space, I will admit. And then last year I shared a apartment with 11 other people and lived in a catered residence. So that way it was even easier for me to make friends. And so I upgraded from Robot Halls to Robot Castle. So it was like one of the, yeah. So basically went downstairs to eat dinner, and that, I thought that was a really great outlet. And if I had known about it or previously, I probably would have booked Robot Castle because it was so much easier to make friends that way. But all the other residences are great as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what we hear a lot from current students is you have to put yourself out there, and you have to really, get involved, be active. Even in the international lounge and the global lounge, if somebody's in there studying, just saying hello and not being kind of, afraid to do that because everyone's there for the same reason. And I think, Sarah, you even said that once before, of meeting people in the global lounge, which is a really good hub for international students.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, a lot of the questions that we get is on the typical American college experience and how does the experience at UCD kind of relate to that. Any thoughts on that, Ray? We can kind of start with you, but any comments on that or anything you'd like to kind of say in relation to that question?
Yeah, so we have the things like American universities have. We have the clubs, we have the sports, we have the school rivalries. Like, we don't like Trinity, don't bring them up. But other than that, I feel that going abroad gives you that extra level of independence. Like Sid says, you're in your own space. Like, you have to cook your meals. You have to keep your room clean and do your wash. Like, you don't really have a lot of those like extra holding your hand along as you go. But honestly, it might be hard the first 2 weeks. I know I lived off mac and cheese for about a month and a half till I learned how to cook. But once you do, you're so much better off for it. But honestly, if you're going in as a first year, you're at such a big advantage because you don't know anything else. You just kind of go, that's your college experience, and it is what you make it. Like you said, you have to be outgoing, you have to be friendly. Don't be afraid to try new things and like explore. Dublin and UCD is super safe, so don't be afraid to go off and do things on your own or ask a random person that you meet at lunch one day if you want to go and do something on campus later. So it is really what you make of it. A university is a university, and you just kind of have to put yourself out there and just be confident, go with it, even if you're not.
How would you kind of describe a little bit about the student culture or the campus culture in general? For example, UCD doesn't have a mascot, and I see both Sarah and Ray, Sydney and Sarah wearing UCD apparel. Talk a little bit about like the UCD culture in general, what to kind of expect coming into UCD. Sarah, if you want to start.
Yeah, I think a lot of US schools are like big football schools, or they have kind of a sport that they all focus on. And I think at UCD, you might be going to a Gaelic football match or hurling or who knows what. There's so many sports that you can go see, but it's not necessarily like a whole school goes out and like cheers on that one team type of thing. But there's so many other ways to like interact with like the whole student body. There's Freshers Week, like you mentioned, and then there's like Rag Week in the second semester, and then nights out. So like certain societies will do a night out together, and that's a really great way to meet different people. And sometimes societies will join together, so then you're meeting like people from your society, another society, and even if you're not in the society, a lot of times you can join in and go. So a lot of the culture is just kind of everyone's pretty welcoming. It's whether you're going on a night out or it's an event on campus, you can just kind of join in and do whatever. So it might not be like a big sports match where everyone's getting dressed up to go, but different events have different kind of things going on, and you can just kind of join in everywhere.
Yeah, I think a lot of our students, are curious, like, how am I going to spend my weeknights or how am I going to spend my weekends? What is there to do? So Sydney, I don't know if you can speak a little bit to maybe what you do on the weekends or what a typical weekend or weeknight looks like for you, but also talk a little bit about Dublin and Dublin as a student city, your experience with that.
Okay. So I thought that personally, I thought Dublin was the best city in the world that I could have picked to have my college. And I'm not just saying that, I truly believe in that statement. Um, I just fell in love with it the minute I came, and basically, I just think it's the perfect little city because it's not too big, but it's also not incredibly small. And it's so easy to find your way around. It's so easy to learn the city. But something about Dublin is that it never really gets old, and it feels like a home in that way. Which I always thought was really nice. Some things that I do on the weekends, typically, I took advantage of that and I went traveling to all over Europe. And I know that's a really big thing for a lot of study abroad students or people who are there for the full degree, either way. And that Dublin was such a great outlet for that. I mean, I got to go to Belgium, Amsterdam, Poland, Italy, all these amazing countries that I wouldn't have gotten to do had I been going to school in the US. So that was great. But typically, like a weeknight or a weekday, I would say most of the time I'd be working at UCD Global because I worked there as a student this past year. And basically, if there's any night out with any society, like was mentioned before, that's also like the best outlet to meet people. And then you head into Dublin, and then it's a super fun from there. So that's what I would say regarding that.
Okay, perfect.
I think it's important to note, just because in the US you only go out really on the weekends, but at UCD it's like all during the week. So like Mondays and Thursdays are really big nights out, even like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But then because the Irish students go home on the weekends, that's usually time for like studying and resting and cleaning your room or going grocery shopping or something like that. But usually like we go out during the week. So I think that's like, it is one difference, but I mean, personally, I think that's much better than I have the whole weekend to like be well rested and get my work done and stuff like that.
Grocery shopping or just kind of do, little things that need to get done. Yeah. And I think that is, I'm glad you brought that up because I do think that is one of the biggest differences in terms of UCD culture in general, or Irish culture at any of the Irish universities, I would say, is that there is that kind of difference in you're really, really busy during the week and kind of having, as you all said, managing your time during the week. But then the weekends are a little bit quieter where you can actually relax and study and catch up on sleep. Maybe talk to your family or your friends back home. And how has that kind of been with the time difference? So Sydney, you and I are 8 hours, sometimes 7 hours, depending on the time. Ray and Sarah, you guys are 5 hours, if I'm correct on that. How is that managing the transition, living on campus, or just being in Dublin in general, and then trying to maintain those communication lines back home with friends and family? Did you struggle with that at first, making that transition or being further away, or was it an easy transition? Ray, I don't know if you want to speak on that.
So I was like any first year college kid. I called my mom every single day for every little thing I did that I was so proud of doing. And honestly, it's not that bad once you get into a routine. Like now that I'm busier, my second year, Sundays I call my family members, I write my emails, like I kind of keep in touch. But like there's so many options. There's Zoom, there's FaceTime, there's Snapchat. So like you're constantly in touch, just like you would be if you went away to university. I lived in Greece this summer for a bit, and I don't know how Sid does the 7 hours because sometimes I struggle with that, but it's a nice difference because like I'll be having lunch at noon and my parents will just be waking up and having their coffee. So that's a really good time for me to call them before they start their day. And like when they're ending their day, I'm just kind of laying in bed waiting for their call and I'm like ready to go to sleep. So it's a nice and just kind of a nice routine to get into. It's really hit or miss depending on your schedule, but after a while, you don't really feel it because we're so interconnected now. It's not like we have to wait a week for a letter to go back and forth.
That's true. No, you're right. There's so many forms of communication all the time that you almost don't feel like there is that difference as much. Sydney, given that we're 8 hours, how was that for you, being a little bit further away from home at first?
That was actually never typically a problem for me. It would be like 5 p.m. over there in Dublin, and then it'd be like 9 a.m. here. So I'd be able to contact them pretty directly and never have a problem. But or something else that also worked was when I would study and I'd stay up late till like 12 a.m. or 11 p.m. and then it would be like 4 p.m. here. That would also work. So it actually wasn't too big of a transition. I really didn't think much of it. So.
Yeah. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't, it was never really something I like worried about. Like maybe going over, I was like, oh, I'll have to call you, whatever. But once I got there, it was very like natural for me. I'm really lucky at my dad's work. I can really call him anytime. He might not love it, but I can call him like in between classes. I'll be walking from one class to another. I'll be like, hi, what's up? Like, what's going on? So, I'm pretty connected with them, and like my sister and stuff, I can text her and my mom as well. So I'm quite lucky where 5 is not too bad. Usually when I'm like going to bed, they're making dinner or whatever. So yeah, it was never really something that I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't been able to call in so long or whatever. It was never really like a stressor.
Got it. I always tell students at first, if you are a bit concerned with the time change, kind of creating that routine or that schedule, like you said, of knowing, okay, at this time, this is our weekly scheduled call until you kind of figure out your routine.
Yeah.
But that way, you know that you're going to be available, your family or friends or whoever you want to talk to is going to be available. Just to make that transition a little bit easier. But that's great to hear that that you all kind of had a seamless transition with that. Because for a lot of students, that might be a concern of how am I going to manage being so far away from home and not having them, readily available. I would even say maybe for parents, sometimes that's even more of a concern, not so much for the students. But just to wrap it up, any final thoughts or comments about your experience at UCD that would be helpful for a prospective student to know about as they consider UCD or even transition to UCD in the fall?
I think one thing is that it's very intimidating. I had a lot of people saying to me, like, you're really going to go out of the country? And I was like, yeah, I am. And it almost like, I don't think they ever meant to kind of cast like a bad shadow on it, but it did kind of worry me. I was like, am I making the right choice? But I couldn't be happier with where I am at UCD. I feel so lucky that I had that option and that chance to go to UCD. I think I've grown so much as a person and become so much more independent. I think Sydney was saying like the chance to travel around Europe at like not much of a like inconvenience at all. Like getting a flight, like it's like an hour at most, maybe 2 or 3 if you're going further away. But it's really easy to travel. It makes you so much more independent. And even like the cooking for myself at first, like Ray said, living off mac and cheese, I was kind of like, what am I gonna do? But like you do learn, you pick it up quickly. And like Ray and I, we would cook together at the beginning of the year. Sometimes we'd go grocery shopping. So even just making that like one friend when you get there makes the world of difference. And you pick it up quickly. I don't think it's as scary as people make it out to be.
Yeah. For me, you just kind of have to look at it like you're going to university, like all your other friends. It might be in a different country, and people in America might think that's intimidating because that's not a common thing to do. But honestly, going to UCD, I've had opportunities academic-wise, travel-wise, that I would have never had my entire life in America. I'm working on really cool projects. I have really cool degrees. Like I've met the coolest people. Like I have a mini model United Nations for a friend group, and I would have never dreamed that before. And you just get so much more out of it. And I don't think you should be afraid to do it. You just kind of have to jump in and do it like any other college experience, whether you're 20 minutes from home or another country, you just have to go for it and not be afraid. And then be afraid after you've done it and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've just done that. But yeah, just be positive, be confident. Even if you have to fake it, you got it. Don't be too stressed.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your time today, and to all of the prospective students who watch this, I know that they are equally as thankful for your time and for your advice. And as always, the Global Office is here to answer any follow-up questions after this panel. But thank you all so much for your time.